Welcome to the Co-Creators podcast. I'm Chloe Anderson.
And I'm Lakita Williams, and we help leaders and organizations build the future of work.
Hello and welcome to the Co-Creators podcast. We jumped right into our conversation right away. So you're going to get a cut and we're going to go right into that conversation. But we're so excited to have you here. And we are talking about transitions today.
Let's do it. So we have a client who recently had some difficult conversations within the context of her organization, just based on how much impact she's having and driving in the organization. She asked for a raise. That raise was denied, right? And
Yep.
it really caused her to take a step back and think about the contribution she's made to the organization since making that request. There was also some changes in how the organization is looking at some certain employee decisions, just to hold confidentiality. And it made her say, okay, this not only, right, is my work not being valued, but this is out of alignment with my values. And what would it mean if I went all in on myself, right? So, in a situation where it's not a lot of like people are having difficulty getting hired, it was really inspiring and exciting to me to hear the confidence in her voice as she said like it's time for me to step out and build this thing that I know is possible so that my values and how I want to support people are available in the world, and like I'm ready to take that step. And I think that's where a lot of people are right now, right? If the status quo isn't working anymore, then let's go for it.
Yeah, and as we were talking about this episode in particular around like pivots and transitions, what you just highlighted is one of the ways we can know that we're ready for
Yeah.
something different is we feel that calling, right? Like,
Yes.
what do I do now? I feel called to do something different, to do X, Y, Z. Where do I start? What do I do?
Yeah.
Like, how do I
Yeah.
navigate this?
Yes.
Because to your point, this client is employed. The job market, like, yes, we are abundance thinkers, and the reality is the job market is not great right now.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so that can feel really scary, especially if you've got a level of risk aversion, right? So like how do we and Lakita, I would say we have these conversations with clients pretty regularly or
Yes.
potential clients often, right? They're
Yeah.
coming to us because they're ready to do something different. What do you say when someone comes to you and is like, I'm feeling called to do this. I have no idea where to start or how I'm even going to make this happen how I know this is the right thing.
Yeah, the first thing that happens is I get so excited in my
Right?
body because the expansion is there. One of the things that I tell clients all the time is that if this was not meant for you, you wouldn't have that vision. You wouldn't have that idea, right? The fact that you even have the idea means that there is something for you and it is possible for you. So it starts with that decision.
I literally just when you said that, no joke, got like chills, right? Like just
Yeah.
felt that in my own body. Like you don't have the idea or the thought if there isn't something to it.
Yes, it's for you. And so, so many people are brave and they make that decision. And then that's when the challenges with something like limiting beliefs come up, right? Someone would judge me for leaving a position such as this. It's not practical to do this thing. And so our next step is to start to is coming up as the thing like why haven't you've had this thought in the back of your mind, why wasn't it present in the front, what was the blocker there, and we need to talk about that and be really clear, and then we can address those beliefs, and not from a place of here's our 4-point plan to do the
Right.
thing.
Here's our fix.
It's not how, right? It's why, and it's also addressing what is holding me back, right? If it's other people's perceptions about this, how do I work on that? Because the reality is that thought is still going to be there. So we don't recommend people like just ignore it and go for it. It's like, no, we got to do that work directly. It's, and tell, yeah, share ways, Chloe, that you help people work through limiting beliefs.
So, one of the first things is getting grounded in
Mhm.
our own values, right? Like
Yes.
coming back to that, because if we can start from that place, even as we go into address limiting beliefs, it's so much easier to create those affirmations that you
Yeah.
need to get connected to like
Yes.
what is most important to you,
Mhm.
why you want to do this, right? Because sometimes we'll have a thought like, I want to do this thing. And it is like, like we're not really sure where it's coming from. And when we
Yeah.
get back to our values and we connect to those, it becomes really clear. And when you've got that clarity, the limiting beliefs, it's not like they fall away, but they are so much easier
To
to
navigate.
manage, to
Yes.
navigate, to figure out like, okay, here's the limiting belief. What is the affirmation that's going to help me? And when those affirmations are grounded in your values, they're so much more powerful, right? Because they are your affirmation. So that would be
Yes.
kind of step one is like asking the question, where, like, I have this idea, what values is that connecting to for me? Because whether we are conscious of it or not, it's connecting to values
Yes, absolutely.
always.
And it gives you such a grounding. I love this because when you can list that out, it highlights that bigger why that we talked about, and you feel firm on where you're standing. I would say the other thing that we often bring in is frameworks. So, what I look at with a client is I say, you can go like, are you here? I'm on the left side if folks are listening, all the way to the right. Where are you, like, on a spiritual paradigm, right? Like, where are
Yep.
you on the spiritual lane? And so I'll understand that for someone, and then we say, okay, what frameworks can we apply that would be helpful? And when I say that, sometimes the framework is a book, sometimes something like The Big Leap, the Karma of Success. Sometimes the framework is the Energy Leadership Index. Sometimes the framework is human design. But what we do is we apply a framework that the person that we're working with can use to help them navigate limiting beliefs or transformation in like their next steps that they need to make. So if I know, let's just say we take something like human design, I'm a generator for example, we'll leave a link in the show notes, right? That means, okay, how I approach decisions is different. How I manage my energy is different. And I can use that to help to drive me towards the goal I want to reach. If it's something, if I'm a lot more, let's say, practical, then I may say, okay, let me use things like, the big leap and some of the information there to use it to make decisions. Am I noticing I'm hitting a upper limit, and so I need to deal with an upper limit problem? So these all of these frameworks we kind of intuitively pull out from having conversations with clients, and then say, okay, what is the best one for you? So you have information to work with as you move through challenges. I think we would say there are, yes, specific ways that you can work through limiting beliefs. And we would say also, right, what are some frameworks you can use that are specific to you? It's a both and approach.
Absolutely. And as you were talking through that, one of the things that I found really helpful as I'm working with clients in identifying tools, resources, frameworks that might be helpful is also understanding what is keeping you from making this next move, or what has
Mm-hmm.
kept you in the past from
Mm-hmm.
moving forward with this. Because also understanding where's generally there's some fear, right? What
Yeah.
is that fear? There's concern around lost opportunities, right? So our
Mm-hmm.
biases and heuristics really come into play around this. Sunk cost may come in, right? But if we
Yes.
understand what those are, that's really useful for figuring out, okay, what is the framework that's going to be helpful for you? Someone who's got a really high belief in themselves, but they've got a lot of external challenges, maybe doesn't need the huge inspiration around like I mean, the big leap actually has a lot around this also, but like
Mm-hmm.
it helps us to identify what is the right resource, what
Yeah.
is the thing that you need help with, right? Is it setting boundaries with people in your life around what they're talking to you about, right? Because no
Yes.
one's going to believe. no one will believe in you as much as you believe in you, right? And so you've got to get grounded in your belief in yourself. And
Yes.
part of that is figuring out, okay, what do I need to do to leave that behind?
What are
But yeah,
yes.
boundaries, like there's so many
What
different
are the tools?
tools.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I think you named it exactly. And I love that you gave this example of boundaries because I think that's another, like, the application of, well, what is actually in the way? This is why I love coaching so much. It's not a one size fits all. There are definitely parameters and like ways to think about things. Coaching is focused on possibility, is focused on the future, right? It's meant to also be grounding, and it has such a thing to it about, as an individual, what is most helpful for me. And I think that's what makes coaching a really powerful tool and resource. And it also requires you to ask yourself questions, right? A lot of times, as people are going to make transition, they're thinking about the plan, but really what we need to do is ask more questions, and those questions bring a level of clarity that wasn't there in the first place. It wasn't present.
And one of those questions that I love is, and this is maybe also a little bit connected to like this, what am I called to do, is getting really specific and detailed
Yeah.
about the vision, right? And
Yeah.
so, I mean, every one of our clients, we start with a strategy session, and part of
Hmm.
that strategy session is visioning, right? And many clients are coming to us in transition. And it's interesting because I will do these vision exercises, and for sure, some clients are like, really? Like, and I can see it, right? I can feel it. And I'm like, yes, really. And we're going to feel it, and we're going to get into
Hmm.
our bodies about it, right? And
Yeah.
we're going to really understand like what this thing is, what it looks like. And yes, it can change as we figure things out, but getting really grounded in that and asking yourself the questions, what does this look like? How am I going to feel when I get this thing, or when I make this change or make this move? Who's going to be with me, right? Like we get pretty detailed in this
Yeah.
visioning, because asking that question also can often bring up those limiting beliefs and what gets in the
Yes.
way and
Yes.
where we might be stuck, right? So it's a question that I love asking,
I
which is
love
like,
it.
3 years from now you've accomplished this thing, 1 year from now, whatever the timeline is,
I
talk
love
to
it.
me about what you see, what you feel, where
Yeah.
you are, who's with you. Like that level of detail just brings it into your body. And it's amazing how truly powerful that is.
I totally agree. I love it. And the vision, I think, is such an important piece. And I think if we were to look at back at the results of anyone who has shared, like, oh, I met this goal, they'll often say, oh, I remember I had this vision, or I wrote this down, or I had this on a piece of paper, and I come back later and I open it and it's there. And that is the power of really intentionally outlining what that vision is and setting that vision. Yeah, I
Yes.
love visioning.
I know we talk about it a lot. I feel like I also just, from a practice perspective for myself, it has just become kind of second nature. When I'm thinking
Yeah.
about something new, I'm getting back into running. I set a goal to run a marathon, and right, chose the marathon. I got this. Now I have the vision for what I'm doing, right? Like I can see it in front of me. I don't know, I'm not there, but like in my mind, I can see me finishing. I can see where I'm at. I can see all of these
Yeah.
things, and all of that. It's so motivating too.
It is. Yeah.
Like
Yeah. I
it's
love
amazing.
the piece here you're sharing about being in your body, right? And it, so if you think about visioning from, again, a spiritual perspective or a science perspective, the answer is the same, right? They all come together, right? And it's support for both. So either way, the power of a vision is transformational and so critical as you're outlining your goals. I think one other thing that we can support as people are thinking about transition is, what agreements do you need to make with yourself? And we talk about working agreements a lot, particularly around culture. We wrote a whole HBR article about it.
Yep. Yep.
So we talked about working agreements within the context of companies, but we recently led an event with our friends at the ladies room. Shout out if you're in Seattle, go to the spa. um about personal working agreements and how powerful they can be. Chloe, what like explain to those listening what are working agreements if you haven't heard it from us, which is unlikely. But how did you kind of transition that into talking about it as personal working agreements?
Yeah, effectively, really, we think of working agreements as your values in action, right? So we're putting action and what your value means for you. And so if I think about a working agreement with myself, and I'm going to go back to like this marathon example, right? I've got this goal. One of my agreements is I am not going to train injured. Right. So my
I
value is
love
my
that.
health. And it has been challenged this past week. I was hiking a few weeks ago. I fell, hurt my ankle. I am dying to get back to running and my ankle's still tight and I'm not doing it, right? And
Yeah.
so and I have to and for me when it comes to working agreements, sharing them is also hugely important, right? So my husband knows my working agreements. I was talking to him 2 days ago about being frustrated and he's like, "Yes, and you told yourself you weren't going to train injured. So I'm holding you to it, right?" So, like having that
Yes.
accountability partner. But effectively, these are the agreements that you make with yourself and you hold yourself to. And when it comes to big transitions or even small ones, it's so easy for fear to come in and for us to kind of talk ourselves out of things
Yeah.
or into things or get stuck. And coming back to those agreements and getting knowing that you've been really specific can be so useful because it is almost a way to give yourself permission to push yourself
Yes.
forward, right?
Yes.
So I cannot emphasize enough how valuable working agreements are for yourself, for your family, right? Like any organization, including your own life, which is its own
Yes.
organization, right, can benefit from having these agreements. So when we were doing it at the ladies' room, we were talking about transitions and identifying what are those agreements that you
Yeah.
want to make for yourself in your life. And I want to name like these agreements can change over time, right? We
Absolutely.
absolutely should revisit them different times, different seasons, different things we're working towards, right? Those things can change over time. And the emphasis we put on which ones can also change over time.
Absolutely. And I love the start that you mentioned about the working agreements, which is they are how you action those values, right? So if you are making a decision around transition, okay, I am going to launch my company instead of being internal to an organization. The value that I'm holding there is something around freedom or impact, right? And so we can build a working agreement around freedom and impact and what work I need to do to make sure that I can be impactful. And there you go, you have your very first working agreement. So really really critical to the process of how do I move through transition. I think as we've talked today, we've highlighted it really is wrap around, right? That we have to think about a couple of different areas, but it is so important and so helpful to get you from I just have this idea or feeling or calling to meeting that result.
And the example you just gave with like you're transitioning because you want to do your own thing. And there could be many reasons for this,
Yeah.
right? For different people.
Yeah.
And let's say it's I want to have freedom, right? And that you write that working agreement. Well, guess what? When you're building your own company, it can be real easy to say yes to a lot of things, especially
Yes.
if you get a little bit of scarcity mentality coming in. Having that working agreement to go back to and say, is this ultimately helping me get to how I've defined this freedom agreement for myself? And that can again ground you and help you not make mistakes in the sense that they are not right for you,
Yes.
decisions along the way, right? Like it
Yes.
can be so I could just talk about agreements all day. I get
Like
very excited about these.
framework. Let's go. I love it.
Yes, yes.
Beautiful. So we outlined today some ways to think about transitions. We want you to lean into those values. We just talked about setting the vision. We talked about working agreements. There was something, where did we start, Chloe?
We started with the question
Yes.
around, well, we got to
With
it
it.
after the story. And
Yeah.
then the question that we were answering today is, what am I feeling called to do next? And how do I get there? So we had that question and we started with frameworks, right? Like, what are the frameworks that might be useful there? What might be helpful? You already mentioned values. Like, what are those values we're looking at? We talked
Working
about
agreement.
building working agreements. Yep. And the last thing, which we haven't talked about yet, is what support do you need to make this
Mm,
happen? And
mm,
sometimes that support, like if I think about running a marathon, that support is I need to have that conversation with my husband because it impacts more than just me, right?
yeah.
If you're talking about starting a business, there's a lot of support in different ways. So really identifying like what's the support that you need. And Lakita, you mentioned wraparound, like not just professionally, but what's the support you need
Yes.
personally? What does that look like? The give and the take that needs to happen, right? So really spending some time figuring that out
Yeah.
is hugely helpful.
It's critical. So we hope that after listening to this episode, if you've been thinking about transition, which is probably why you are listening, that you take away that there are some steps that you can put into place that will be supportive. Our biggest hope and intention, right, is that you go after what you want to do, that you create the vision, that you have the impact that you want to have. And so we are encouraging you. We are excited for you. And as always, thank you for your leadership.
We hope today's conversation gave you something to think about and, more importantly, something you can use. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love for you to share it with another leader, entrepreneur, or friend who might benefit from hearing it. And for additional resources, frameworks, and tools related to our topic, please be sure to subscribe to our newsletter at cocreatework.com. And of course, if you have any question you'd like us to explore in a future episode, we would love to do that. So please send it to podcast at cocreatework.com. As always, thank you for being here and thank you for your leadership.